Hello everybody, my name is Karryshh and welcome back to another recap video. This time it's our latest Filipino horror movie, Nokturno. The movie is based on a Filipino folklore KUMAKATOK. There are some evil beings who are tall and very powerful. They come knocking on people's door at night 3 times in a row, and if someone answers their call, they will be cursed by KUMAKATOK and will die in the time of 3 days. The movie is interesting and I hope you enjoyed this video. On top of that, you need to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and like this video as well. It's something that keeps me motivated to bring more of these recaps. And with that said, let's dive into the story of Nokturno. So the story starts with a girl named Jo who's feeling really scared in her house at night. She's already packed her things and is ready to run away, and she hears some strange sounds in the house and freaked out, she ran out of there. While Jo is on the road, she senses something invisible following her, and she knows this for sure. She ends up running to her boyfriend Manu, who comforts her and takes her to his hotel since he owns one. In the hotel room, Jo starts telling him that something is after her, but Manu can't see anything. Then she begins explaining how her mom used to tell her these strange stories since she was a kid. Apparently, Jo's mom learned these tales from some nuns she lived with as a child. Her mom had always wondered about not opening the door if someone knocks 3 times after midnight, or else she'd be cursed. But one night, Jo heard knocking on the door and decided to ignore her mom's warning and check. But when she opened the door, there was no one there. Except after the movement, she saw a demonic figure, and terrified she hid inside the house, but her mom caught her and yelled at her for opening the door. Now Jo is telling Manu that all of this happened 3 days ago, and ever since then, weird evil things have been happening around her. Manu still doesn't believe her and says that her mom's stories have just gotten into her head, but right then, Jo starts feeling nauseous and she then threw up. To help her out, Manu goes to a nearby shop to get some things, even though Jo tries to stop him because she knows she's cursed. But after Manu leaves, Jo is left alone. Jo now goes to the bathroom to wash her face, and then she messages her older sister, Jamie, telling her to come home since Jamie lives abroad. Just then, someone knocks on the hotel door 3 times, and Jo assumes it's Manu. She checks through the peephole but no one's outside, and freaked out, she backs away. But the knocking starts again, and suddenly, paranormal things starts happening in the room. Terrified, Jo locks herself in the bathroom, but something starts banging on the door, lights burst, and then an incredibly evil force grabs Jo and brutally murders her. The scene cuts to Jamie, who's now coming back home after hearing about her sister's death. She's devastated, especially because Jo's last message was to her. Jamie's home is on this island, and when she arrives, she's picked up by her mother's brother, Tito. Now on the way, Tito tells Jamie that the cops have ruled Jo's death as an unalivement, but some people suspect her boyfriend Manu was involved. Actually, you see, Jamie's family doesn't really like Manu. After this, they stop by this house where Jamie's mom used to live as a kid with a group of nuns. A little later, they finally arrived at Jamie's family home and we meet with her mother, Lilith, who turns away when she sees Jamie. Actually, Jamie had left her family years ago, partly because after her father's death, Lilith started telling weird stories to the kids in the house. And Jamie also has a younger brother, Julius. The scene shifts to Jo's funeral, but before seeing Jo's face, Jamie meets her brother Julius, who is really upset because no one is telling him what actually happened to Jo and how she died. Julius has a habit of collecting moths, and he is deeply depressed over his sister's death. Now while flipping through Julius's notebooks, Jamie finds these creepy drawings of demonic figures, and it hits her that Lilith has been telling him the same twisted stories she once told Jo and Jamie. Jamie warns Julius to believe whatever he wants, just not their mom's stories, and then Jamie goes to comfort Lilith. The two talk about Jo's death, and Lilith starts going on about how she warned Jo to not open the door, but Jo didn't listen. Jamie gets furious and yells that Jo did unalivement because she was just tormented by Lilith's nonsense stories. They start fighting and Julius steps in to break it up. And right then, Manu arrives at the funeral. Now, as soon as Lilith sees Manu, she screams at him and kicks him out, blaming him for leaving Joe alone at night. If he hadn't done that, maybe Joe would still be alive. Jamie follows Manu outside and asks him what really happened that night, and now Manu is completely freaked out. He explained that these entities were after Joe and eventually killed her, and ever since that night he's been seeing some strange things too. Every night something knocks on his door 3 times, and now it's like the curse has passed on to him. Of course, Jamie doesn't believe him and tells him to not fall for Lilith's stories, cause they're just stories. Now after everyone leaves Joe's open casket funeral, Jamie finally takes a look at Joe's face and sees stitches on her neck, which really shakes her up. Suddenly, she feels an evil presence behind her, and then there's a knock at the door 3 times. Jamie goes to open it, but right before she can, Lilith appears and warns her not to. Ignoring her mom, Jamie opens the door anyway, but luckily it's just Tito with some food. After giving her the food, Tito leaves, and the next day, Jamie tells Julius that he should come to stay with her for a few days. Julius agrees since he feels like he needed a change. And now later at the cemetery, they say their final goodbyes to Joe. Julius asks his mother if he can go stay with Jamie, and Lilith also agrees. Now once everyone leaves, Jamie stays behind by Joe's grave, where Manu joins her. Clearly heartbroken, he starts crying, but then Manu hears 3 knocks from inside the grave, and we see that he's the only one who can hear it. Terrified, he runs away, leaving Jamie confused. That night, Jamie keeps trying to call Manu, but he won't answer, and then she hears knocking at her main door again. She peeks out the window but doesn't see anyone outside, and when she goes downstairs, she was distracted by some other noise coming from Julius's room. Quietly, she peeks in, and she was shocked to see both Julius and Lilith praying together, asking to be spared from the curse of the KUMAKATOK. Then suddenly Lilith notices Jamie, and Jamie wakes up, realizing it was all just a dream. However, something still feels wrong, cause now Jamie sees her sister's spirit in the corner of her room, but the next second it vanishes in thin air. Without wasting time, Jamie decides to take Julius and leave the house that same day. But unfortunately, they never make it to home cause Jamie come up with a different plan in mind. Jamie wanted to see the place where her sister died, so she decided to take Julius to Manu's hotel for one night. Julius wasn't thrilled about this, but he didn't argue with his big sister. After they checked in and settled down, Jamie opened up to Julius about the family's history with their mom. Basically, when Lilith was pregnant with Julius, her husband wanted to leave her, which led to a big argument. The next day, they found his body in the river nearby. It was officially ruled as an unalivement, but Lilith's mother had told her daughters that their father had opened the door for KUMAKATOK, and that's why he died. Since then, the family believed the KUMAKATOK curse was hanging over them. After her husband's death, Lilith made it a ritual to tell the kids the story of the KUMAKATOK every day, warning them to never open the door for it. Jamie believed that her mom kept repeating the story because she couldn't face that her husband might have taken his own life. Julius, on the other hand, believed his mother's story wholeheartedly, which is because he grew up hearing the same story over and over again, and after hearing Jamie's version, he started to leave and go back home. But Jamie managed to convince him to stay. Now, after Julius fell asleep, Jamie heard knocking at the door. She went to check, and finally, she opened it, but there was no one there. And then she notices blood on the hallway floor, along with footsteps leading down the hallway. Jamie followed the sounds of the footsteps and ended up at the room where her sister had died, finding the door open. She walked in, and in the bathroom, she saw the broken mirror. Then she froze in fear because she witnessed Manu standing in the bathtub in a creepy manner, mumbling to himself. Jamie checked on him, and he was in a rough shape, muttering that Joe was right. Manu told Jamie that 2 nights ago, he heard the knocking at his door and made the mistake of opening the door, and now KUMAKATOK was after him. Jamie calmed Manu down and brought him to her room to rest, and after hearing what he'd been through, she started to wonder if there might be some truth to this old story. Just then, Manu sees a demonic figure in the room and screamed, waking up Julius too. Jamie managed to settle both guys down and they eventually went back to sleep. But the next morning, when Jamie woke up, Julius was gone because he ran back home and he was now sick. Lilith was taking care of him, and when Jamie came to visit, Lilith asked her to leave, refusing to let her take Julius anywhere. Now Jamie was left alone, so she went on a walk with Manu. Manu told Jamie that she should leave because this village is definitely cursed, but Jamie still needed to know why her sister committed unalivement. While they were talking, Jamie asked if Manu was the one who knocked on her door last night, but Manu froze because he didn't even go near their room. He said maybe it was KUMAKATOK, and now the curse is after Jamie as well. Hearing this part of the story, Manu starts panicking and he ran off, leaving Jamie even more confused. Jamie followed him back to his house, where she heard loud banging from one of the rooms. Nervously, she entered and was horrified to find Manu smashing his head against the wall over and over again. When Manu spots Jamie, he screams. And then Jamie saw a terrifying figure of the KUMAKATOK in the room with them. Suddenly the door slammed itself shut, and when it finally opened again, Manu was dead. And it leaves Jamie shaken to her core as she is finally fully convinced that the curse is real. The police and ambulance arrived, and then Tito come to see Jamie. He now took her to the cemetery, showing her the grave of his wife Lorna, and he then began to tell her a haunting story. Actually, you see, Jamie's father had been killed by the curse, and Tito was the only one who believed Lilith about it. Tito had tried to figure out more about the curse, but in the process, he ended up getting cursed himself. Now at that time, he only had 3 days to live, but he learned that KUMAKATOK only needed one soul to be satisfied, either the soul of the cursed person or someone they loved. So it means if KUMAKATOK gets one soul, everything would return to normal. Tito's wife Lorna found out about this, so when the KUMAKATOK came for Tito, she sacrificed herself to save him. Now Tito tells Jamie that her family needs her, and when the KUMAKATOK will come for her, he will sacrifice himself so she and her family can be saved. Jamie was furious to hear this, and she doesn't agree with this plan and storms off back to her house. That night, Jamie starts seeing her sister's faint, ghostly face, and then she wakes up to the sound of knocking. She looks out the window and sees her mom standing outside in the rain in the hotel's garden. Obviously, Jamie goes to get her, but the main door keeps on opening and shutting in this creepy unnatural way, and then, out of nowhere, Lilith disappears from the courtyard. Jamie is freaked out, but just then, a demonic hand of KUMAKATOK appears on the door. Terrified, she runs for her life, escaping down the hallway, but the KUMAKATOK seems to be right there, and there were more than one chasing after her. Suddenly, one of the KUMAKATOK lunges at her, and Jamie ran back into her room, but then there was loud, relentless knocking on her door. Just like her sister, Jamie hides in the hotel's bathroom and ends up sleeping there. Now next day we see Julius, who watches a moth escaping from his clutch and ends up following it down to the basement, where he starts to sense a strange presence. Just then, Jamie shows up, and she was there to get Julius out of that cursed house. But right then, the candles blow out, and outside, one of the KUMAKATOK appears, followed by another one inside the house, and the two siblings were terrified and they quickly hide. The KUMAKATOK roams around the house searching, while Jamie grabs a knife just in case. Luckily, Tito shows up outside calling for him, and Jamie and Julius dash over to him, explaining what just happened, and the three of them jump into the car and they drive straight to Tito's house to get away. A little while later, Lilith arrives at Tito's place, and finally, Jamie apologizes to her mom for not believing her all along. Lilith forgives her and they all get a bit of rest. That night, Lilith shows Jamie some old photos of her father, and as they look through them, Lilith starts telling Jamie a story. We now learn that during a war, this village was once home to a group of nuns. Then American soldiers arrived, and while the nuns had taken care of him, the soldiers ended up killing the nuns in the end. This story leads to the theory that maybe the curse is tied to the spirits of those nuns. And that's why Lilith's family is affected, because Lilith herself grew up around those very nuns. Later that night, Jamie can't sleep and she starts seeing visions of her sister, so she gets up and heads out her room. Tito spots her and asks her where she's going. Turns out Jamie is planning to head back to her house because Lilith left her medication there, but Tito stops her and tells her that he will go to get the medicine. However, Jamie's real plan is to find that old convent where the nuns once lived and uncover more about the curse. After Tito leaves, Jamie finally goes to that old house which is completely in ruins. Inside, she finds a spot on the floor covered in candles and sees something written on the wall. It says, "They cannot enter." Seeing this, Jamie thinks maybe the KUMAKATOK can't come into this place. She also spots a bunch of crosses hanging from the ceiling, and it makes the place even more holy. Just then, Lilith shows up, because she was following her daughter all the way here. Now, Jamie tells her mom that maybe this place is safe from those entities, but Lilith explains that there is no truly safe place in this world and reminds her that Jamie only has one day left. Suddenly, a KUMAKATOK enters the house, and seeing its demonic form, mother and daughter starts running. The KUMAKATOK chases them in its eerie way, and finally, they hide in a room and lock the door, but soon KUMAKATOK starts banging on the door. Jamie breaks a window and tells Lilith to escape, but instead, Lilith insists that Jamie go first. Now Jamie leaves, but Lilith remains, because Lilith has decided to sacrifice herself so her daughter can live. Obviously, Jamie calls out for her mother to come through the window, but Lilith just says her goodbyes to her and opens the door, and she let the evil forces take her into the darkness where they kill her. Jamie is left crying outside, and by morning, she has no choice but to go back home alone. The scene shifts to Lilith's funeral, and everyone is there looking somber. Tito tells Jamie that it should have been him that night and not Lilith, but he acknowledges that there's no change in what happened. Julius was heartbroken as well, and he walks away into his room where he releases the moth he'd been keeping. Now Jamie comes over to talk to Julius, and she comforts him, saying that once they move to the city, things will get better, and maybe a fresh start is exactly what they needed. Now that night was supposed to be the last night for the siblings in that house. Tito was on his way to the hospital to get Lilith's certification, but as he was headed out, he started thinking. He couldn't understand why Jamie got cursed by KUMAKATOK. And here we found another thing. Actually, you see, there was a certain way this curse spreads. When someone dies cause of this curse, it targets the next person who spoke to the victim last. So when Joe died, the curse hits Manu, and that's why he died. But we also know that Jamie started hearing knocking sounds the day she arrived on this island. So maybe, just maybe, there's a deeper connection between Jamie's family and this curse, something tied to Lilith's childhood. But this mystery is not solved in this movie. It's possible that Lilith got cursed when she was young, and she purposely didn't open the door back then. This might have caused all three of her children to be cursed as soon as they were born, and that's probably why Lilith used to tell these stories. Now that's my theory though. Feel free to share yours in the comments. Now in the end, Jamie goes back to her mother's body and she cries. But then her phone rings. On the other side, Julius wakes up because he hears something outside his window and he goes to check. Now as soon as Jamie picks up the phone, her soul freezes when she hears Lilith's voice telling her, "No matter what happens, do not open the door. They are coming and they're going to kill our whole family." Meanwhile, we see Julius where the KUMAKATOK appears at his window and he can barely breathe from the fear. The phone call finally cuts off and then the knocking starts on the door. Jamie of course was terrified and she refuses to open it, but then She sees that her mother's body is gone. Terrified when Jamie turns around, suddenly her mother's evil spirit appears in front of her, and she was clearly under KUMAKATOK's control, and she scares Jamie so badly that she opens the door in fear to run away. And then the KUMAKATOK, who were right there, kills her too. And well, I guess Julius probably died as well, and that's how the movie ends. So this was the recap video on the movie Nokturno, and I hope you have liked this video. If you have, please subscribe the channel and like this video. I really need your support to grow further. If you want to watch this movie, there's a link to my Telegram channel in the description box. If that link does not work, just go to my Telegram and put my channel's name in the search bar. How and when you can find this movie on Telegram will be revealed on the channel, so go join there. I'm mostly active on Insta, so you can follow me there as well. And look into my other channel where we discuss about the mysteries of the world. All the links are in the description box. For now, I'll see you all in the next one. Till then, stay awake, cause they always see you.